Hi, this is David McCann for WebTNG. This is the third video in a mini-series looking at WordPress security plugins. In the first video, I looked at the all-in-one WP Security and Firewall plugin, which is free. And in the second video, I looked at using iTheme Security together with the BBQ Firewall plugin. Now, in this, the third video in the series, I have two plugins that are facing off against each other: Patchstack Premium and the free version of Wordfence Security. I'm doing a direct comparison of these two plugins because, unlike some of the other solutions that are considered, the teams behind Patchstack and Wordfence Security are focused 100% on website security. The companies don't have any other products, and perhaps that makes these plugins stand out from the others. So I have a testing website here. I've got the Cadence theme, free version of the Cadence theme, got a bunch of demo data, got a custom post type. Let's go to the back end here. I've got coming soon in maintenance mode so that visitors coming to the site see a coming soon page. But for testing the security plugins, I'm just going to turn that off. Okay, then if we look at the plugins installed, right now I have advanced custom fields and custom post type UI to create the custom post type, all-in-one WP migration for backup, coming soon maintenance mode. I have cadence blocks, I have main WP so I can check the site and apply updates if needed. I've got the P3 Performance Profiler plugin. I'm going to use that to check memory usage. And then I've got WP Reset Pro so that when I'm done with this video, I can reset the site to use it for the next project. And so right now I have iTheme Security, the free version, installed. Obviously I'm going to be replacing this first with Patchstack and then with Wordfence. But before we do that, let's go to the P3 plugin profiler, and just as kind of a baseline, let's run a couple of tests against iTheme Security free. I'll install it and then run some tests, generate some profile data with no security plugin installed, and then we'll use the same test again when we install Patchstack and then Wordfence. So I'm going to start the scan. I'm going to call this iThemes 1. And so what this does is it loads some of your pages and looks at memory usage as for those page loads. Okay, so let's view the results. This is the information by plugin. So for example, iTheme Security here is saying that's like using 27%, I guess, of the time for loading. But what I want to look at here is the memory usage. Okay, so with iTheme Security installed and activated, I use 14.31 megabytes. Okay, so let's see, iThemes free. There's our, I just want to keep track of that. And I'm going to run the scan 3 times for each plugin. 14.46. So just a little bit of variance there. Let's run it one more time. Okay. All right, that's pretty similar for all 3 of those. I'm going to deactivate and delete iTheme Security. Let's go run our profiler again. This is going to be none 1. Okay, and this is 5.38 megabytes memory used. All right, let's run it again. 9.23. So there is some variation there. Let's do one more. Okay, 9.23 again. All right, so let's do our average here. All right, and then 14.36. All right, so there are averages. Now let's go to take a look at Patchstack. Patchstack actually has a free plugin in the WordPress plugin directory. And what this does is it notifies you if you have a theme or plugin or your version of WordPress core has a security vulnerability. So it's just a notification service. I subscribe to several sources for information and updates on WordPress security. So personally, this plugin doesn't do anything for me. And I'm interested in the premium version, and I just thought I'd mention it here since it exists in the WordPress plugin directory. You get the pro version of Patchstack from their website. We're going to look at the features in a few minutes. What I wanted to point out here is that the Patchstack team, in addition to providing the firewall plugin, also maintains a database of WordPress security vulnerabilities. And they have a program where they support security researchers in finding and reporting security issues. They also have a bounty program. In addition to providing the plugin, the team is also active in the wider community. If we look at the pricing, we can see that $674 a month per site. So $80.88 per year per site. I'm logged into Patchstack here. This is the dashboard. And with Patchstack, you get both a plugin that installs in your site, and that has security settings there, but you also get access to their online dashboard. And an interesting thing about the online dashboard is it seems like most of the options that you can set in the plugin, you can also set in the online dashboard. And so this gives you some flexibility. You know, this shows that I have the virtual patching enabled, which is like the real-time firewall rules. Their hardening and lockdown procedures, so it says that I've done the main ones and it's performed these security tests. This is kind of an overview for all of the sites. I have 9 sites. It's telling me that I have 7 themes or plugins that are ready to be updated. Here we have a list of sites. You can see that for each site, it tells you the number of themes and plugins, if anything's outdated, and if there are any known vulnerabilities. View the firewall components, add-ons, alerts. These things here are in general for all of your sites together. And the add-ons, that's like malware cleaning, things like that. So that's an extra fee. And we're going to look at the various components, the firewall and lockdown things in a minute. There is also an option here for generating a report per website per month. And if you want that white labeled, then that's also an additional fee per website. This goes to the documentation, to the feedback. Over here you have a chat. This is the way to communicate with the Patchstack team. I've used this a number of times and always gotten good feedback, sometimes instantly and sometimes in 10 or 15 minutes. They've always been very helpful. So before we go and add the demo site, let's look at one of the sites that already exists so you can see what options are available on the dashboard. Here's the site for WebTNG. You see how it shows the last 30 days, total number of themes and plugins, how long it's been online. And if we look here, this shows a list of the plugins and themes. Here it shows the settings, the firewall settings. You can enable country blocking, HT access features that have been applied. Okay, and then here's the hardening. We'll go through and see setting these when we actually install the plugin on a site. I just want to show you that all of these settings are available in the dashboard. There's cookie notice. So here's the firewall log, the uptime. This is the activity log, failed login attempts, my updates and logins, things like that. The users, the add-ons, which I don't have any and then the plugin and API information if you need to reinstall that. Okay, so just wanted to kind of quickly show you that the individual site dashboard is pretty nice. Here where we see like the aggregated firewall for all the sites, I don't know that that's as useful. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the dashboard now, and what I want to do is add a site. So I'm going to go to Websites, Add, and this is a little confusing. See how that's disabled? You have to click here to add it. Then you can add another one if you're adding a bunch together. Now you can click Add Site. I'm going to download the plugin manually. If you click here, then you give it your username and password, and it'll try to install it for you. But I'm just going to download it and then upload it on the site. Okay, back at the testing site, I'm going to upload that plugin, activate it. Okay, I'm just going to save that. And let's walk through the process now. So you have a security menu here now, and you have several categories of settings here. There's hardening, firewall, login protection, cookie notice, logs, and license. And I'm just going to say up front that Patchstack, I think, is the easiest to configure of any of the security plugins that I've looked at that are full-featured. There are a few that are simple to configure, but that's because they just have a few settings. This presents everything kind of in a straightforward way. You just go down the list, and there aren't hidden settings and whatnot. Okay, so remove the README. Okay, auto update if you want to auto update. So we could click that, for instance. Disable the theme editor, disable user enumeration, hide WordPress version, enable activity log, log failed logins. You can mirror your failed logins on Patchstack if you need to check there, so I'm going to do that. Can block application passwords, restrict XML RPC access, so that's good. Restrict REST API if you're not using the REST API. These days, a lot of plugins use that, so I'm going to leave that on here. For some blacklist sites, you can enable reCAPTCHA. I'm not going to do that now because I'd have to register the site with Google reCAPTCHA, but you can see you have the comments form, the login form, registration form, and password reset. So that's good. And then you've got 3 types of reCAPTCHA that you can use. Okay. That's the hardening. Now let's go to firewall. So block for an hour after 10 blocked requests over a period of 30 minutes. So I usually bump that down, and I usually bump that up. Okay, then you can whitelist, basically for users who are logged in if you want to do that. I'm the only user on the site, so it doesn't really matter, but I think it's fine to apply the rules to everyone but administrator. This is an option for how Patchstack gets your IP addresses. These are features that are written to the htaccess file. I think most security plugins are going to write to that. You can disable them, though, if you want. You can add security headers. And one thing I've noticed with Patchstack is this works like about 90% of the time. There are a couple of sites where I've added them manually, and they do have instructions for doing that. Prevent default WordPress file access, block access to the debug log file, disable index views, forbid proxy commenting, prevent image hot linking. You can add your own rules and set where you want the rules to be. You can do country blocking. And so you can, block access to the site by country. You have a block list and a whitelist for IP addresses. Okay, under login protection, this is an option here where you can change the default login URL. Again, that doesn't really make your site more secure, but what it does is makes it harder for bots that are trying to brute force your login to find the page. And so that cuts down on churn. I've done this on a few sites that were getting hammered, but usually I don't do that. Then you can ban IPs that fail multiple login attempts. So again, I usually bump that up, bump that down. Let's see, the difference between this And this one is invocation of firewall rules. So like, trying to break in. And this is failed login attempts. Patchstack has the ability that you can set login hours. So basically you can only log in during certain hours. And this is the kind of thing where, again, it's nice to have the online dashboard. So if you do an emergency, if you needed to get in, you would be able to do that. You can turn on two-factor authentication. Not going to do it for the testing, but that's here. These are blocked IP addresses and whitelisted IP addresses. Here you can add a GDPR cookie notice. Here's where you see activity logs. So there are firewall logs and activity logs. And this is where you enter your license information, and there's a place where you can test to make sure you're connected to the Patchstack central dashboard. Because we downloaded the plugin, I don't have to do that. It's kind of baked into the plugin when you download it. Okay, so that's kind of the walkthrough part. Let's go and take a look at the P3 profiler settings now that we have Patchstack installed. We'll do the scans. So we go look at advanced metrics, memory usage, 8 megabytes. Let's do it again. Okay, now we're at 10 megabytes. And a third time. And at 10 megabytes again. And so we have an average. All right. So we can see that it's more than without a plugin, and it's less than iTheme security. Now let's take a look at Wordfence. Wordfence security has both a free version and a premium version. The free version on the WordPress plugin directory, it has more than 4 million active installs. Wordfence security is the #1 most installed security plugin in the WordPress plugin directory. There are some interesting things about Wordfence. We're going to look at the features. It has 3,426 5-star reviews. But the interesting thing here is in the last 2 months, it has 262 out of 311 support issues resolved. So that shows you that the Wordfence team is very active in helping even the free users. When we looked at iThemes, there were only a couple of support issues that have been resolved. I'm just going to be installing the free version, but just to take a quick look at the website for the premium version, they have several services. This is the general, the premium, but they also have care and response. So if you want more hand-holding or you need extra support, you would use one of these other plans. If we look at the plan comparison, the premium is $99 a year. There is a discount if you buy multiple years, or I think if you buy, license for several sites, you also get a bit knocked off for those as well. Like Patchstack, Wordfence is a company focused on website security. And so they're active in the community also. They publish a lot of blog articles, both when there is a vulnerability to alert their users, like here's one in the Clean Talk plugin. And they also have a very active YouTube channel. So I think they try to stay active in educating users. So let's go back now to the demo site. Okay, so I'm going to go to plugins. I'm going to deactivate Patchstack security and delete it. And I'll remove it from the Patchstack website also, but we don't need to record that. Now I'm going to search for Wordfence, and we'll install that and activate it. Okay, so the first thing it wants is, the address for your security alerts. There's the option to enter your premium key if you purchase a subscription. Okay, and Wordfence is installed. Okay, let's go to the dashboard. And it has a little tour here. We're going to skip that. So they encourage people to auto-update Wordfence, and you can configure your firewall. We'll kind of step into that in a minute. So on the dashboard, they have a section for the firewall, for scanning, and the option to upgrade to premium. There are notifications. There's WordPress Central, and so we'll take a look at that in a few minutes. And then there are some tools, help, global options, and some stats. This is their total Wordfence network, so you see they're kind of advertising a bit. Okay, so if we go to the firewall, first time there is a wizard there. Notice we've come to firewall now. We have a number of different kind of submenu options here. So let's manage the firewall. I'm going to say no thanks to that for right now. We are in here to configure that. The firewall comes on by default in learning mode. I'm going to go ahead and enable it. The learning mode helps, I think, monitors. Is supposed to kind of try to prevent false positives. But this is a pretty simple site, so I'm just going to go ahead and enable it. There's the option to optimize it, so let's do that. And what this does is it writes a lot of the rules into the htaccess file, because that would load before WordPress does. So you can make a backup of the htaccess file. So I'll save that. Now we'll continue. So it's written some of the basic rules there. It went back to learning mode. And then for advanced, we can delay until after WordPress and plugins have loaded. So what's the advantage of that? Notice how they have the help there, which is nice. Okay, so this would only be if there were some issues. You would check that. Here are some allowed services. I'm not using any of those. Here's a black list of IP and a white list of IP. These are category rules then that you can disable if you want. You see it's got WordPress specific rules like slider revolution, general rules like SQL injection and cross-site scripting, malicious file upload, directory traversal, and so on. Brute force protection. So here is where we do it after so many login failures, and I had it set for 5, I think. Okay, you can immediately lock out invalid usernames, prevent use of passwords leaked in data breaches, force strong passwords, don't reveal valid users and login errors, prevent user registering admin username, prevent user enumeration, disable WordPress application passwords, block IPs with blank user agent and refer, check password strength on profile update, participate in the real-time security network. So we're sharing with Wordfence here for the free version, but we're not reaping the benefits. We've got to wait 30 days. Rate limiting. So this is interesting if they're excessive 404s, which might be an indication of being, scanned for vulnerabilities. So I think if you go less than this, it says that that's excessive, but I would block it. If the human page views exceed, so if humans are going through very quickly, then you can throttle that. Human not found, how long it's blocked for. And then allowed 404s like favicon ICO is one that comes up a lot. Then you can set an allow list that will not be tested by the firewall. And then monitor background requests from the admin web browser for false positives. So I guess while you're developing or working on your site. So I'm going to save changes. Let's go back to firewall. It doesn't give me a very good score there. Okay, so that's configuring the firewall. I guess we'd have to upgrade to get better scores. Looks like we'd need to upgrade to premium in order to use that feature. So now let's go to scan menu. Again, we get the wizard. So here it shows the things that it scans for. These are premium features. And then these are ones that it's going to scan for here. So we can start a scan. And I'll pause the video but let you know about how long it takes. Okay, so that took about 2 minutes, and we can see what it did. It checked the server state, file changes, malware scan, content safety, public files, password strength, vulnerability scan, and user and option audit. Okay, so only a couple of these are handled by Patchstack. So these scan features are things that Patchstack does not have. And no issues, so that's good. One thing to note with Wordfence, see, if it had found an issue, there's an option. If it's a file that's not critical, you can delete it, or it can try to repair some of the files. They do say that the automatic repair feature is not 100%, but still you do have some options. Of course, you'd want to take a backup first. Let's see, we do have, I think, a standard scan. There's a high sensitivity scan and a custom scan, which I think is a premium only option. These are things it will scan for, so I could have enabled a few more. Some performance options for limiting resource usage during the scan, and some exclude options. If you want just-in-time malware signatures, then you need to upgrade to premium. And I think the reputation checks are also a premium feature. Okay, so that's the scan. Let's take a look at the tools. Again, we get the wizard option the first time. This is nice. This will show you live traffic. You can do a whois lookup. You can import, export options, and there's some diagnostic help. Login security. Here you can enable two-factor authentication, so that's available on the free version. And these are backup codes. And then here's a user summary, and you can set up options for allowing which user roles get options to use two-factor authentication. So that might be useful on some sites. You might just want the administrators to need to enter the two-factor authentication. You have the option to remember devices for two-factor authentication and require 2FA for XML RPC. So that's interesting. I think here we can just reject, turn off XML RPC. Here you can enter reCAPTCHA keys for the login and user registration pages. Set the threshold. This is for time synchronization. And you have a WooCommerce integration option for reCAPTCHA and two-factor authentication. Patchstack and Wordfence add tables to your database, and Wordfence gives you the option to remove them if you deactivate the plugin. So that's nice. You don't have to leave those behind. Then there is, let's see, we need to save settings. Okay, then this is kind of a master list of all of the options. So that's the Wordfence walkthrough of options. There are more features than Patchstack, but I also think that it's a little more difficult to go through and configure. So one thing I wanted to show you is that Wordfence also has a dashboard. We can add a site here. Takes you back to the site and makes sure it can communicate. Okay, so when you are on the central dashboard, you can see issues are found, your firewall and scan, the license type, you can get help. You can configure the options here. So that's good. So you can set the options then here on the site, just like you would with Patchstack. You can create a template for your options if you're using Wordfence on multiple sites. And we have no sites with connection issues, so I'm not sure why we need to have the bubble there. Another thing you can do here then is launch a scan from the dashboard. Okay, so that's Wordfence Central. That's a nice feature that they're offering for free, which is more than Patchstack has in its free plugin. So anyway, I think that Wordfence is very full-featured. Okay, let's go back now to our site, and let's go to the Tools menu and check the P3 plugin profiler now. Okay, here's Wordfence security, so you can see it's took quite a bit of the time there. Let's see what the memory is. 18.5 megabytes. Okay, now let's run it again. 18.62 megabytes, so that's pretty close to the other one. And one more time. And 18.62 again. Okay. So we have 18.463. So that's pretty close to double the amount of memory use with Patchstack, although you do have more features and things going on. Okay, so that's the kind of walkthrough and review part. Now for some discussion and conclusions. Okay, so I wanted to start the discussion by reminding you that there is an overview companion article that goes with this video series, and that has comparisons of all of the plugins that are being mentioned. Here we're just talking about Patchstack and Wordfence. So first thing I want to compare is the security features. Here what I've done is I've snipped out of the larger comparison table just Patchstack and Wordfence free. Both products are very full featured, and they have a lot of the same kind of essential important features. But some of the standouts where there are differences is, of course, Patchstack has the just-in-time firewall rules that the free version of Wordfence doesn't have. So that's a big plus there for Patchstack. And on the Wordfence side, it has the malware scanning, which is an important feature that Patchstack doesn't have. I have a P for partial here because it's that 30 days behind in the free version, but still the scans that even the free version does are very nice. I think that in general, the free version of Wordfence has a few more lockdown features than Patchstack. Like, for example, the file and directory permission lockdown, enforcing strong passwords and refusing compromised passwords. These extra lockdown features are a plus on the Wordfence side. If we continue and look at some more of the features, Wordfence free does have some automatic malware removal features. Patchstack has the ability to change the login URL. It does cut down on churn from bots hitting the login page. And Patchstack also has the option to automatically update vulnerable themes and plugins. Wordfence, again part of the same scanning process, will check for file changes. If we go then to the next area, ease of configuration, I think that the Wordfence presentation of options within the WordPress dashboard, admin dashboard, is something of a maze way. I've got no question in my mind that I didn't configure it in the absolute 100% optimal way. It's real easy to miss something. I thought that in terms of the WordPress dashboard, the Patchstack simple layout of options made it much easier to configure. I could just go down the list and I saw everything on just a few screens, so I liked that much better. Talking about dashboards, if we look at the online dashboard, Wordfence now has that online dashboard, so they both let you view and change your configuration options from a central place. I thought that the overview and settings details are better organized in the Wordfence dashboard. You see the sites, and then you can go and see all the details. And on the online version of checking the settings for Wordfence, those were also presented in more of a list view. There are a lot of them, but they are presented in an easier to access list view. Patchstack redesigned their dashboard a few times. I think this latest iteration is not quite as good in my mind as some of the previous ones. They're trying to show you overview of your performance of all your sites, and that doesn't really make as much sense to me. One more thing that kind of stood out in terms of the online dashboard is that the Wordfence dashboard is very full-featured, even for the free version. I think that that is a really nice value add, especially if you have several sites. We did look at performance, at memory usage. So just to summarize that, with no security plugin, it was just under 8 megabytes of memory average for the site. Same site with Patchstack installed, it was about 9 1/3 megabytes of memory, so there was an increase. It wasn't huge. For iTheme Security, the free version, we jumped up to about 14 1/3 megabytes. That is a big jump. It's almost, not quite, but almost double the amount of memory used with no security plugin. And then if we look at Wordfence, the free version, and that goes up on average almost to 18.5 megabytes. This 18.5 megabytes is almost double the amount of memory used on the website when you have Patchstack. As far as the P3 performance memory test goes, Wordfence deserves its reputation for being a resource hog. Now, I want to look at the price feature differences. Here, Patchstack is $80.88 a year. These are some of the things that Patchstack has that Wordfence Free doesn't have. So these are some of the kind of more standout features in my mind. Patchstack has the just-in-time firewall rules, which I think is the biggest one. You have the ability to hide the login URL, auto-update vulnerable components. It's easier to configure, and it's more performant. So those are kind of the pluses that you're getting for your $81. Some of the things that Wordfence Free has, kind of better than Patchstack, is it has the malware scans and the auto malware cleanup. It has more lockdown options, and it has a better online dashboard. Now, I didn't really talk about the pro version of Wordfence. We didn't really look at that. But what I've done is kind of added standout features when you're using the paid version of Wordfence. So Patchstack stays the same. You get the just-in-time firewall rules, so that kind of equals that out. You get the network brute force, so that's where Wordfence aggregates the IP addresses from their users and can identify IPs that are scanning websites for vulnerabilities and lock them out. And then these are the features that we mentioned before. You have the malware scans, the malware cleanup, more lockdown options, and a better online dashboard. So for $99 a year or $100 a year, you're getting these extra features. Let's look at my final conclusions. You can't really go wrong with either one. I think they're both viable options. They can both be used to secure your site. The main weakness of Patchstack is the lack of malware scanning cleanup options. I mentioned that to the Patchstack team a couple of years ago. That would be a way that they could really improve that product. The Wordfence main weakness is the performance, the memory usage, and that's kind of the Achilles heel of Wordfence. So I think if Wordfence was more performant, then the pro version of Wordfence would be a no-brainer versus Patchstack. Now, if you already have some malware scanner like Malcare or VirusDie, and you pair that with Patchstack, those are more performant, then that's a win. But in those cases, of course, you're bringing in additional plugins, additional services. So that's my walkthrough, comparison, and discussion of Patchstack versus Wordfence. We've covered a lot of points, and I'm hoping that this video will help you in your quest to find the best security plugins for your websites. As I mentioned, taken a look at all-in-one WP security and firewall. We've taken a look at iThemes plus the BBQ firewall. Now we've looked at Patchstack versus Wordfence. There's one more video in the series where I'm going to look at some other options, some that I've used, one that's been suggested by a friend, and one that I no longer use, and share my thoughts about the different ones that I'm still using. So that's the video. Thank you very much for watching.